Hello and welcome to the Hardwood Hoops podcast. This is episode 46. I'm your host, Liam Horsley, and I'm joined by my usual co-host, Mr. Ben Jones. How you doing, mate?
Hello there. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you. How was it? Did you have a good one?
Surprisingly, it was real quiet, as is everything at the moment. So, is what it is. But yeah, bring on this year.
Yeah, definitely. We are both tier 4 people at the moment, unfortunately for us, but there's lots of basketball to keep us going, which is all we can ask for.
Exactly.
Plan with the podcast is we're going to record weekly every Sunday now, me and Ben, and then in the week have the sporadic guest on for certain team pods and some different views, maybe some draft stuff, and then every Sunday we're going to record our main episode. I think the plan, Ben, we're going to have a bit more structure and have a few more segments that we're going to try and use every time then.
Yeah, definitely get some, like you said, consistency into the pod, which seems, well, we like 6 months into it and we're just starting to get a bit of a consistent thing up together. But it's all been a bit mishmash this year for now. So let's start afresh.
Yeah, definitely. And Ben is also the busiest man in the world, so that doesn't help. He's teaching the future generation to A, love basketball, and B, to learn things. So we have to adhere to that.
Exactly. You know, I've got many plates spinning.
Cool. Well, plan for today is we've got 4 segments we're going to go through. We've got winners and losers, surprise performances, rookie watch, and then the best upcoming games. Why don't we start with winners and losers? Ben, why don't we start on a positive note and you give us your 2 winners and why, and we'll talk about those 2 teams.
The first winner I'm going to talk about is definitely going to surprise people, and that is the Houston Rockets.
Oh, that is surprising. I like it.
Although they are 2-2 at the moment, I watched a bit of them play, and seeing John Wall come back and Cousins starting to get minutes, I just am a much bigger fan of this roster and the way they're playing and the way the team's forming. I think they could, well, they do every year, but I think they could really surprise us this year and do really well. Like the main reason they're a winner for me is just seeing John Wall come back and playing really well. That's the main thing from me. I don't know if you saw have you seen his first game back?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of his games, including the pre-season. I know he missed some league games with the COVID issues, but I watched 2 of their pre-season games that he played in, and he just looks as close to his old self as he can get after, I think it's an ACL and an Achilles, I think, over the 2 years, or a knee injury and the Achilles. Yeah. He still looks explosive, doesn't he? He's never been a good shooter, but if he couldn't get to the rim, we're all going to be worried about his offense, but he can still get to the rim. His passing's quite good, and obviously he's got that link with Cousins, I think, which helps him.
Yeah, they played in college together, so he's averaged over the game so far, and it's in a couple of games, but 25 points, 5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 2 steals, and a block and a half, with 5 turnovers. But for somebody coming back and playing at the highest level possible that he hasn't played at for sort of over 2 years, I think he's done incredibly well. And the other thing that surprised me about this team is Christian Wood. What a player he's turning out to be this season.
Tried to tell you about that one. To be fair, I love myself. I love myself a bit of Christian Wood. I think him and Harden, they played 1 game together, didn't they? And I think they had a really good relationship. And I think he's the perfect center / power forward, depending on when you play him, to play with James Harden, because he can shoot inside and shoot out, and he can also get lobs as well, which we know Harden loves to do because he's very good at driving to the basket and getting the center of lob. So I think they're the perfect duo for me for Houston. We don't know how long Harden will stay there, but at the moment, roster-wise, I think it's looking good. And if they get a good player back for Harden, whether it's a Ben Simmons or someone maybe slightly worse, but still of that higher tier at least, I think that they could kind of do well this year and maybe be a playoff team like a lot of people think and a lot of people don't think.
Yeah, they've got options, which I didn't see them being able to do at the end of last season when they've got that small ball roster and you're kind of figuring out what changes can they make to sort of rejig themselves if they're making all these changes again. But they've managed to do it, and I'm massively impressed considering they've had all the front office changes as well and coaching changes. Yeah, the Houston Rockets have really surprised me, but maybe they shouldn't have, because Harden and Wood. Hardwood. It's a perfect combination.
Perfect combination. There we go. That means we've got to like James Harden now, though. So let's go for it.
Oh, wow. Let's not stretch to that.
Yeah, and like you say, in the Rockets are 2-2 overall. They've had that COVID scare as well, which affected their start, and they'd arguably probably have a better record if it wasn't for that. And now Harden's got this ankle sprain that people are saying is not an ankle sprain, but ESPN saying is an ankle sprain. So whether he is getting traded this week or it is an ankle sprain, I think he'll probably miss a game or two. But overall, I think they've got a deeper roster now. So I think things are looking up for the Rockets. And if you get a huge trade package for Harden and you keep these players on the roster you've got now, at least it's not going to be a complete rebuild. I think it's going to be more of a retooling, which is exciting for a fan. A lot of fans don't want to see their team just lose for 2 or 3 years to get back good. They want to stay good, even if it means still changing the players every now and then. So I think that if I was a Rockets fan, I'd be very positive.
Yeah, definitely. So there's some love for the Rockets from us.
Cool. Who is your second team on your winners list?
The second team I've got on my winners list, I imagine these might have trickled into yours as well, but it's the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, they are. I didn't have the Rockets on mine, but yeah, 76ers are on mine. So let's spend a bit of time talking about them. What's impressed you so much about them other than the obvious record?
Again, it's for me more so the way they've adjusted to the players coming in, and the way that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are playing together. They seem to be clicking as a team so much better than they did at all last season. Again, it's early days, but they look like a team. They've got that outside shooting now in Seth Curry and Danny Green, although Danny Green isn't the Danny Green we know and love, but maybe he'll find that form again. But Ben Simmons is doing what he needs to do. He's getting the assists, he's getting the rebounds where he can, and he's working inside when there's space. Joel Embiid seems to be prioritizing inside first and then working out, which is what we want to see. He's being aggressive, he's playing well.
Less jacking up of random threes at the top of the key, I think, has been an improvement in his offense.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And they've got backup minutes. The team's looking fairly deep, and the rotation's nice at the moment. I think everybody knows their role on that team now, whereas I think that was a bit disjointed last season. And I think that's probably that stronger coaching leadership from Doc Rivers coming through.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's one of his main tools, getting people to listen to him and kind of play as a team. His offense can be a little bit stagnant in terms of modern day NBA, but I think that's one thing he is good at, is getting a team to kind of be organised, play together, and get everybody knowing their roles. A lot of it was made of the Clippers playoff run, but in the season, with a lot of injuries, they did very well, and the players kind of knew their roles. It was only when everyone came back that things were more disjointed, when people were playing different roles. But when people were injured throughout the season, Doc was very good at kind of letting everybody know their roles, and everybody knew which shots were theirs and which shots weren't theirs. And I think that he kind of carried that on in Philly for me.
Yeah, I was literally about to say as well. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Philadelphia, for me, I think are going to be an incredible regular season team this year. What I'm interested to see is how they adjust in the playoffs, because in recent years, this is where I feel Doc Rivers has struggled with the Clippers in particular. He seemed to be better with the Celtics. Whether that was because he had a better roster, I don't know. But it'd be to see whether he can bring that over, that sort of the Celtics playoff runs rather than the Clippers playoff runs, this Philadelphia team.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. That's kind of the next step for them, isn't it, as an organisation, I would say. And at the moment, they're coming off 127-112 win against the Hornets last night, when people are listening to this, which is another good win. They're I think it's 5-1.
Yeah,
right in saying that. Yeah, 5-1. So they're top of the East at the moment. Yeah, I was a bit higher than you were, but we still both had them as top. I think it's 5 or 6 teams in the East. I think I had them in 4th. They're well on track to do that at the moment. And in terms of a starting 5, Ben, at the moment they're rolling out with a Simmons and Curry kind of backcourt, even though we know Simmons is a big point forward, but he plays point guard. Yeah. Danny Green and Tobias on the wings with Joel Embiid as your centre. And then they're using a bit of youth off the bench in Maurice Thibault, Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton. Two of those being very good defenders, which is what we spoke about in the draft process, that they really fit kind of the Philly way.
Yeah.
And then Dwight Howard getting the few minutes. He's not my favourite player in this rotation. But in terms of that starting five and then those youngsters off the bench, would you say that's one of the best sort of lineups in the East? I know Harris had a bad season. He's overpaid, but he's still a good player. I know he's not a great player, and that's the issue, isn't it? Why he paid so much money. But do you think that starting five is very, very good for the Eastern Conference?
It's massively competitive, especially in the East. How many centres in the East can compete with Joel Embiid, realistically, when Joel Embiid is playing his best? Not many. And same for point guards. How many are getting around Ben Simmons? Some of the best point guards in the league. He's one of the best defenders in the whole league, let alone at that position. And he can go across all sorts of different positions. Steph Curry is one of the most efficient shooters we have as well, which is what we said last season. Although they looked great defensively and they were a big team, they had no shooting, really. And they've made a positive change there by bringing in this super efficient shooter in Steph Curry, and a sort of almost a backup option who is primarily a defender now, but when he's got the space and he's in the groove, can hit the shots in Danny Green. It's a really good base to kick on from. And then, like you said, they've got that youthful injection off the bench. And even, I know you're not a big fan, but Dwight Howard lately has changed a lot and is bringing just energy off the bench. And again, knows his role and is happy, I think, just bringing that presence rather than saying, I want to be getting the ball this many possessions and I want to. He's kind of taken, I think, a leaf out of the JaVale McGee book, and he is that running center. I'm here to block. I'm here to rebound. If I get points, that's fine. If I don't, I'm doing my job. So I love the way the 76ers are setting up at the moment.
Yeah, and Dwight Howard's still a good defender. Always has been, regardless of what's happened on the offensive end and the kind of dressing room sort of vibe. But yeah, I agree with everything there. In terms of the players as well, Joel Embiid, the star player, Joel Embiid I think he's averaging nearly 13 rebounds a game, which is in the top 5 in the league. Yeah. I think he's 12th in points per game, which is like 25. And then Tobias Harris is in the top 50 for points a game as well. 19 is your second fiddle. And that's probably with Ben Simmons not quite getting going in many of the games in terms of scoring yet. And there'll be games where he needs to score and he will get to the rim and score. So I think it's looking quite balanced for them. So yeah, they were on my list as well. The other team on my list then that weren't on your list is the New York Knickerbockers. I spoke about them with Rich in terms of the victory they had against the Bucks, which was shocking. But
yeah, what a surprise that was.
Yeah, the Bucks are a little bit up and down, and the Knicks are the Knicks. But yeah, the way they beat the Bucks, it wasn't like a hard-fought game with foul trouble and someone was injured and someone scored a buzzer beater. It was a hell of a win for the Knicks. And then in terms of record-wise, they won again last night. So I think they're 3-3 now. And we're going to preference everything we say and say this is far too early, but we can only talk about what's happened. So even though it's early, they're still doing well. And in terms of a win total, this is what I tried to speak to Rich about, was their win total was 21 games, what me and you spoke about on the pod. They've got 3 wins already. So even though it's early, they've got 3 out of 21 wins already. So there's only 18 wins to get to where the average person thinks they should be at. And there's how many games of the season left? Probably 66 games to get 17 wins.
Yeah.
So I just think they've started really well. Julius Randle and Alex Burks are all in the top 30 in scoring, which is hilarious. I'm not a big fan of Julius Randle, but he's winning them games at the moment just with sheer rebounding and scoring, which is good. As a fan, you don't want to lose every week. And I just think I've been impressed with how they've played for Tibbs and how they kind of worked hard. Still, some of the youngsters aren't quite getting the rotation you'd thought. It took him a few games to even get Frankie Smoke some minutes. One of their drafts picks been injured, so he's not seen many minutes. And they're still playing people like Alex Burks. And there's an argument to say he's not the future of your team, don't play him. But I've seen on Twitter a number of Knicks fans just enjoying finally staying up at 12 o'clock at night, seeing your team win a game. And the next game they may lose, but there's a chance they may win. Whereas years ago, you were just staying up basically to watch them lose. Yeah. So I see both sides of the argument that, yes, the youngsters, some of them aren't getting as much minutes as maybe you would think and maybe you'd want in terms of development. But there's a fine balance just to building a bit of culture, getting Tibbs happy, getting some wins, getting the system in and kind of getting some fans back on side. So I think there's a fine balance. They can still finish with a 5th, 6th worst record in the NBA, if they want to, and kind of play younger players later in the season, or they could have a go and try and finish 10th and get in the play-in tournament. I just think that for a Knicks fan, it's been a positive start. What are your thoughts on the Knicks?
Yeah, Alec Burks has really surprised me. He's playing really, really well, and I think you're completely right. For me, I think this is a culture building and a stage setting kind of beginning of the season. They're playing these more experienced players, showing these newer, younger players, this is how I want you to play. This is what I want you to do. So now when I'm increasing your minutes and decreasing their minutes, I want you to do what they've been doing. And it also gives these experienced players a chance to show themselves off for potential trades in the future or whatever's going on with their contracts. I don't know with Julius Randle or Alec Burks what they've got left.
But it's their last year for both of them, I believe, so they could be traded at the deadline.
So they're going to be showcasing their talents. Julius Randle's stats across the board at the moment are ridiculous. 21.3 points, 10.5 rebounds, 7.2 assists. That's the big surprise for me there.
Yeah, he got 8 assists last night. So they're coming off we should say this, they're coming off 106, 102 wins against the Pacers. And this was much more of a game that I was talking about earlier. And rather than it being a blowout, it was kind of back and forth. I've seen so many Knicks fans buzzing that they can finally beat a Pacers team that probably finished, 6th on average, 7-6 every single year in the Eastern Conference. And the Knicks have probably finished 13th to 15th every single year, and they can come out and beat them in a hard-fought game. And like you're saying, Julius Randle last night, he only got the 12 points, but then he's getting 11 rebounds, 8 assists, playing 37 minutes, and kind of focal point of the offense. One player I will say, and it's not all the experience, Mitchell Robinson hasn't had the best start. He's still struggling with foul trouble. He had a good game last night, but he was struggling before that. But RJ Barrett has been really, really good. He played 42 minutes last night. 5 rebounds, which is what he should get for being a guard of his size. 3 assists, but that's the problem. He's not there really to generate an offense. He's not a true point guard. And 25 points again. And I think that's his third 20-plus point night so far of the season. So I think RJ Barrett, for one of the youngsters at least, is looking very, very promising. Kevin Knox is Kevin Knox coming off the bench, but for me, RJ Barrett's really good. So you can kind of cheer your team on, but also see one of your best players developing as well every single game. So I think that Knicks fans should be very positive.
Yeah, there's definitely some positive room for the Knicks, which is nice to say. It's been a few years.
Yeah, and they might prove us wrong because we have them both at the bottom of the East in our predictions. And there's a few teams now that are a good 3 or 4 games behind them already, which maybe we'll go on to talk about in our losers section. So yeah, let's go on to talk about those first. Why don't you kick us off then with both of your losers?
Okay. First losers I'm going with is the Grizzlies. Not for anything that they're doing wrong per se at the moment, but just because of injuries.
That didn't look good the other day for Ja Morant. I know it's not as bad as what everyone first feared when they saw him getting in a wheelchair, but high ankle sprain, 3 to 6 weeks out, I believe. And they're already missing Jaren Jackson Jr., I still think, at the moment. Is that right?
That's right. And Justice Winslow as well.
Arguably the 3 best players, maybe with Jones Valanciunas up there as well.
Yeah, potentially. Which isn't looking good considering sort of where they got to last season and what I imagine they were planning on doing this season, which is kicking on a little bit. However, you could make the case that long term it could benefit them by maybe dropping some places, getting another pick this year, and really keep pushing for that future of the team. But I know me as sort of almost a neutral fan. I enjoyed watching the Grizzlies last year, and Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. were 2 of the main reasons why I enjoyed watching them play. Without them on the team, it's a real shame. So they're the biggest losers for me at the moment. I don't know how you feel about the Grizz.
Well, I was going to say then as well, there's a lot of rumours from someone like Chris Vernon, for example, who works for the Ringers, that Ja Morant has looked. He's a Grizzlies fan though, so a bit of bias. But Ja Morant in pre-season looked incredible, and a lot of national media have said the same. And they were expecting him to take another leap forward. Maybe not quite a Luka-esque leap, but maybe a second year sort of Luka leap in terms of leading the team again into another level on offense. So it's
Yeah.
just a shame to see someone go down. And high ankle sprains, if they come back too early, that they'll kind of impact you for 3 or 4 months. So I just hope that they kind of really take their time with him and don't rush him back, because I don't think there's much of a need to rush him back. In terms of them being winners or losers, it's difficult for them. I think they either need to completely tank or they need to give it a real good go for the playoffs. I don't think they should middle too much. And I just think that they're going to drop down the standings now. So I agree they're a loser just because those injuries are awful. And if they have long-term effects on the players, then it could really affect the Grizzlies' kind of future, especially Jaren Jackson. I think it's an ACL, isn't it? And a PCL he's coming back from. So that could take him a year or two. Look at Porzingis to come back from. So I'd be more worried about him than anything. But in general, how they're playing, I just think that they are what they are. And without Ja Morant, they're probably going to lose a lot of games, unfortunately. But I was going to ask you, what would be a good season for the Grizzlies? Just say Ja Morant comes back end of January. Jaren Jackson Jr. comes back at some point in the season. Same with Winslow. Is a good season for them actually finishing really low and getting a draft pick, but playing heavy minutes for the youngsters and kind of getting over the injuries? Or is a good pick actually finishing 10th and going into another kind of playoff sort of environment, even if they lose like they did in the bubble?
For me, I think them as a team and probably Grizz fans would want to see that playoff push, I think, especially after last season. But for me, I think their best option is to play well, bring on their youngsters, and maybe get another pick this year. And next year be that year that they kick on as a team together.
Makes sense.
Gives themselves to get over those injuries, like you've said, and develop the talent they've got, because they've got a massively talented team here. It's just they're all so inexperienced, the majority of them.
Playing the long game is definitely the clever way to go for a team in the Western Conference as well, I think.
Yes, that's the other thing I think of, how strong that Western Conference is at the moment. Do you really want to be pushing yourselves and sort of risking players now when in
just
a couple of years
10th.
When teams have blown up or been traded or blah blah blah, when you've got more of an option sort of to compete at a higher level, why not wait for them? What's frustrating about this as well is with Morant, like, he's incredible because he just throws himself into absolutely everything with just no fear whatsoever. And the rebound, I don't know if you saw it, that he hurt.
Yeah, I did.
He just didn't need to do it. But he's just like a puppy out there. He's just running around chasing the ball, just trying to be under everything. So maybe this will sort of develop his play in terms of conserving his energy and going for things sort of more appropriately rather than just flying in at everything. And that could be his next step.
Yeah, I think he's got to learn to control himself a bit more, just at least in terms of the injuries. Look at John Wall, for example. How many injuries did he get in the first few years of his career? But very similar playing style. Obviously, Derrick Rose is the more famous one in terms of that sort of scenario of all the injuries he had. So, hopefully he can calm down a bit, but still also utilise his speed and burst when he needs to. That's something I think it's a fine balance when you're that young.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go on to the next one then. You've got another team on your losers list?
Yeah.
Maybe one that on both of our lists potentially.
The Wizards.
Yeah, that was top of my list as well. What do you think is going wrong with the Wizards? And were we incorrect to put them as high as we both did, or is it just too early and it's just a bit of I suppose building process?
I genuinely think it is just too early at the moment, and they're just sort of feeling it all out, because the games where I've watched them play, they've played really well.
Till the fourth.
Until the fourth, yeah.
And which player notoriously struggles in the fourth? That's all I'll say.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. He's come out as Mr. Triple-Double again this year, hasn't he? And he's been filling his stats. I mean, him and Beal have looked good together, and he has looked good on this team. It's like you said, it's crunch time minutes that they are struggling in, and that's where they need to defer to Beal and not to Westbrook.
Beal still looks really good though, right? Again,
he looks incredible. To be honest, we've done some fancy drafts this year and bits and pieces, and he has been one of the players that sort of top 3 at the top of my draft board this season, just because he's fantastic. He's so good. I feel like he's a bit underrated actually in the league. I don't know what other people think of Bradley Beal. Maybe write into us on Twitter and stuff. Let us know how you feel about Bradley Beal. But I think he is one of the best players in the NBA at the moment, but he doesn't get enough credit.
Top 10 or definitely top 20 and not quite top 10, or
definitely top 20.
Just not top 10, maybe not top 10 yet.
Yeah, not quite. Maybe I think that'll come with getting some wins under his belt and being more recognised. I think that'll start pushing him up into that top 10.
Moving teams, maybe.
Perhaps.
Cough,
yeah.
Warriors, cough, Mavericks.
Yeah, because
now Giannis is gone off the ball. I think teams are going to be trying to get Beal this trade deadline. That's my 100%. Opinion. 100%. So they're 1-5 at the moment. So they've only got one win of the season. The one win came when Mr. Westbrook wasn't playing. Something that doesn't shock me. I've had a lot of not arguments. Well, I do argue quite a lot, so maybe I call them arguments about the whole Westbrook Wall trade, and everyone said that the Wizards were just clear winners and stuff like that. But my example was 3 days ago. I can't remember who it was, but the Wizards lost their 4th game of the season, and at the end of the night, loads of stats were involved, right? In the starting 5, their plus minus. Rui Hachimura's plus minus was plus 15. Denny Advia was plus 5, or Avdija, I should say, plus 5. Bryant, who's playing actually better than I thought he would, was plus 2 because he got in foul trouble. Beal was only plus 3. But so they're all pluses. So how have they lost the game? Mr. Russell Westbrook plus minus was minus 17, and his 4th quarter plus minus was minus 31. And that just sums it up. It's turnovers, it's jack threes, and like you said, I think he's 4th in the NBA in rebounds. He's something like 2nd in the NBA in assists. I don't know quite where he ranks in points, but he's going to be high in points as well. But it's not wins, is it? That's the problem.
He's averaging about 20 points a game. And what frustrates me is he doesn't need 12 rebounds, 13 rebounds a game. He doesn't need them. Why are you there? Get out.
Thomas Bryant and Robin Lopez, though, are the perfect bigs for him because they love just to box people out and there's like a free rebound.
I know. It just frustrates me. Like you're one of the quickest, most athletic players in the NBA, yet you want to stand in the basket and give the defense time to go and set themselves up.
Half-court offense, which you're also not good at attacking. Half-court offense.
Get out and run. Yeah. Let Beal get the rebound and give it to you or something. And like, there's just so much more. There's way better options. He's averaging 5.5 turnovers at the moment.
Yeah, 12.5 assists as well. So he's second in assists, 3rd in rebounds, and like 15th in scoring, which sounds great, but
it's pointless. It's all pointless stats.
Yeah, when you look at some of the numbers, it's just so his. I think his 3-point percentage is 26. Field goal percentage 42, and it was at 39 for their last game that he played in. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. I just think they look good on paper, and their stats are going to be good, and they're going to score loads of points like they're doing. But the team defense is awful, and the 4th quarter scoring efficiency is awful, and a lot of that will be to do with Westbrook, and some of it will be to do with having Rui and Denny in the team who are very young as well, which is just part and parcel. But I think that when you pay that much for Russell Westbrook, and he's supposed to be a leader. Probably more so than Beal, if I'm honest, in terms of leadership at the moment.
And I think
think it's missing.
What makes them losers is where the losses have come. 2 against Chicago, 2 against Orlando. You get the Philadelphia one. They're a great team. You would have thought Orlando maybe split, but Chicago
shouldn't lose 2 games to the Bulls. You should not lose 2 games to the Bulls. In terms of their upcoming schedule as well, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but they've got the Nets followed by 76ers followed by the Celtics in the next 3 games, so they could quite easily be 1 and what would that make them 1-8, and also after that they've got the Heat, Suns, Jazz. So that's their next 6 games, so they could easily be what would that take them 1-11 before they head into Pistons, Cavs, Hornets foursome, which is a lot more. Yeah, and also you think. With Beal and Westbrook, it wouldn't shock me if they went on the road, or I don't know if it is on the road, but if they went to the Suns or the Jazz and they got a win, just because they scored like 140 points and
Yeah.
Beal scored like a good fourth quarter. That could easily happen, but I just think overall, the start of the season is not going to be quite what the Wizards wanted. And there's a few people that wrote to us and that we know that have had the Wizards in the top 6. We had both had them in 8. And 8 is still realistic in an Eastern Conference, but if you think they're a top 4 or 5 home court advantage team, which some people do, I think they're mistaken. Regardless of how early the season is, I can't see them being a home court advantage team in the East for me.
No, definitely not, especially with the next couple of games coming up. And even when you look deeper into their schedule, you just, don't
Beal could get Beal could get traded as well.
Yeah.
But let's move on then to the last loser. We'll go for this one a little bit quicker. So Chicago Bulls for me was the second one on my list. We've already had the Wizards, so Chicago Bulls. This was because if you look at the record, you think 2-4. Why are they any worse than, I don't know, the Hornets? But it's just from watching the games. I've watched 2 of their games in full and watched the extended package on one of the other 4.
Yeah.
And they just look awful to me. They've got too many players, which is weird, that they like to play in like a week space where they lose a game and they change the 10-man rotation to like a different 10 men, for example. And they play on average like 13 or 14 guys across a 2-week period. And I think 5 of them just shouldn't be getting minutes. And there's players that should be getting more minutes for them. And defensively, they look absolutely horrific, which probably doesn't surprise anyone because a lot of people love Zach LaVine more than me. But one thing you're not going to love is Zach LaVine's defense. So that doesn't help when your star isn't a very good defender. And also Larry Markkinen, again, picked up another injury the other day. And they're scoring quite well, but for me, their defense is awful. And that Wizards game, the first one, they really should have lost, but the Wizards kind of just blew it in the fourth quarter. And then the other game, they did quite well in the fourth quarter against the Wizards, but in the first half, their defense was awful. Bradley Beal could just do whatever he wants. So I just think that they're going to be lower than where some people have had them. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the 10 seed for me in terms of that play-in sort of tournament. And I just think that they've got a good coach there, but they really, really need to get this GM to kind of work this roster out and try and work out what he wants to do. There were a lot of rumours they want to get rid of Wendell Carter in the off-season. And it just wouldn't shock me. I think they just got one or too many players in certain positions, not enough guards. And yeah, I'm just not high on this Bulls team personally.
They'd get some good offers for Wendell Carter as well. Like he'd fit into a lot of rosters across the NBA. So I think people would give a fair package for him.
It seems to be they prefer. Apparently they prefer Markkinen to Carter Jr. But I'm not saying they even should trade Carter Jr. I'm just saying they need to change something. They got too many. For example, to have Porter Jr., Patrick Williams, Wendell Carter all playing together, they're very, very similar players. And for me, I don't think Zach LaVine's stock's ever going to be higher with the amount of points he scored for this team. And I think if you're ever going to trade him, do it now. It's just their roster's a bit of a mess. Garrett Temple's averaging 28 minutes, I think, a night for this team, and that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't quite. He's having 23.2 minutes a night.
Yeah, 28 minutes played in their last loss, 29 in the biggest loss of the season. It's just, a strange team. And I like the coach, but I think it's going to take time. But I think the GM needs to be more forward-thinking this season and not just play a whole other season and see what happens at the end. I think he needs to be a bit more proactive and thinking, right, which players do we actually want to build for the future? What can I get for the ones I don't want to build? And then who are we going to draft next year from this really good draft class that fits with the players we want to keep rather than just drafting whoever's best that doesn't quite fit for me. But
yeah, I think you've nailed it there. They just need to be proactive with this roster. Teams will snap up Zach LaVine for his offense. You look at this team as well. There's not a standout defender really. I mean, who's the best defender? Porter Jr. maybe Thaddeus Young, but he's
Thad Young's probably
old.
their best defender. Kobe White can be all right. Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of young players, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not great. Shame.
It is a shame, big franchise, but hopefully they can turn it around. We both love their coach. I just think that they need to be very proactive in the next 12 months before they could kind of fall into a deeper hole. Because people forget how bad everyone says about the Knicks and the Nets before that, but this Bulls team has not been great for a long time now, and they don't want to keep just falling into a Knicks kind of pit of misery and be like 20-year franchise that struggle. I think they need to just be a bit more proactive. Let's move on to our next topic then. Surprise performances. We've got 2 games each that kind of surprise us. I'll kick us off. We're talking about Ben's team because he always talks about them. So the Cavs beating the Hawks 96-91. The only team I think to hold the Hawks under 100 maybe. Could be a bit of a weird night for the Hawks, but yeah, it's a surprise performance. So I just want to shout out the Cavs for beating the Hawks.
The Cavs, this is a real. How I feel about this is it's really frustrating because it's so good to see them winning, but at the same time, it's not doing them any favors in terms of the draft coming up this season.
Yeah, this is probably the one year they should really be bad, to be honest. But
yeah, and they're doing all of this with a couple of players out or injured or whatever. Garland and Sexton playing really well in the backcourt together, I think, which we didn't really see last season. Felt like they were a bit chop and change, whereas this season they seem to be playing really well together. Drummond's really bought in, which I think is making a huge difference. He's consistent, getting those points and those rebounds for the team. Kevin Love injured again, frustratingly. I think he'll be out for a little while now. The thing that's worrying me a little bit about this Cavs team, it shouldn't really, because I want them to get better draft stock next season. But they're not playing Okoro as much as I thought they were going to. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to see some more of him because he played really well in the preseason stuff.
Yeah, and he's big for the future. I agree. I think he's not getting enough minutes, especially whilst Love's out.
Yeah. So I don't know what they're planning to do with him there. Because, yeah, like I said, he played incredibly well. And Kevin Porter Jr., no one really knows what's going on with him.
He keeps getting caught with doing illegal things, which doesn't help.
Yeah, which is a shame because he's massively talented and he's not doing himself justice here, really. But, yeah, it's bittersweet. I love the fact they're winning, and they're winning really well, and they're playing really great team basketball. Just not great for draft stock.
No, who's your first surprising performance on your list?
So I've not gone with a team on this. I've gone with a player as a surprise for me.
Cool.
And that player is Terry Rozier. When he was in Boston as that backup point guard, I really rated him. I thought he was great, and thought he needed a starting spot somewhere. And then he got traded to the Hornets, and I thought, oh, yes, here we go, chance to shine. And he was awful. Like, he was dreadful. And then I thought this season he's in even more trouble because they've drafted LaMelo. So LaMelo's going to come in, take his spot, take his minutes, and that's going to be Terry Rozier sort of fading out of the NBA. And he's come out. He's averaging 23.2 points and 3 rebounds, 2 assists. The rebounds and assists aren't impressive, but his scoring has been incredible.
Yeah, he definitely proved to be a score-first point guard.
Yeah, hugely. And I think it kind of works, playing him more at the 2 and LaMelo running the offense. Seems to be really working for the Charlotte team at the moment. They've been playing well. It's not a great record at the moment, but I didn't expect anything of this season. So any wins.
No, you can play well and still lose games and get a good draft pick. It's probably the best way for those sort of middling teams to do, I think.
Yeah. I just hope they can keep this sort of guard rotation playing well between Rozier, LaMelo, and Devontae Graham.
Well, a lot of Hornets want LaMelo Ball to finally start now, the way that Devontae Graham's playing, which is definitely one to watch. I think he should start, if I'm honest. As much as Devontae Graham was good last year, I just think that's the future of the franchise, I think.
Yes, definitely. So
cool.
Terry Rozier is my surprising player so far.
Nice. Who's next on your surprise? Like second and last on your surprising performance list?
Well, to be honest, I had the Cavs as well. They were a massive bonus for me. So let's flip to one of yours.
Cool. My last one was just another game. Pistons beating the Celtics 96-93. I just found it funny because I think the Pistons aren't very good and won't be very good, but they've still got some good players randomly. A little bit like those old Knicks teams, that had good players, like when they had JR and then they had Melo and Stoudemire, then Porzingis and Rose, and they're good names, but the team's not great. That seems to be the Pistons for me, but they beat the Celtics. The Celtics were absolutely awful. And it's one of the worst games I've ever seen a Brad Stevens Celtics teams play. So yeah, that was just a surprise to me for the Pistons for winning that game, but more surprising, I guess, how bad the Celtics looked. But that can happen every now and then. But yeah, it was just a bit of a shocker for me.
Yeah, I completely get you. You don't expect a team like the Celtics to fall like they did and play the way they did against a team like the Pistons of anyone.
It's very typical bad Celtics performance that involved a bad Tatum performance. Which worries me. That happens often when he has a very bad game. They really do struggle sometimes to eke out those wins. So maybe just something to watch as the season goes on with a team that me and you were so high on before the season started, potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I think they are still developing and growing and integrating the couple of new additions they've got, but they are heavily reliant on Tatum and Brown both scoring.
Yeah. And Brown's playing really well, actually, really, really well. Better than I thought. Even better than I thought he was going to. I kind of knew he was going to be a star for this team after last year, but he started really well, which is good. And now a lot of Celtics fans don't want to include him in a James Harden trade, which I can understand with his age. He's
making a case for sort of maybe a most improved or something.
Yeah, he could be up there. If they have a good record, he could be up there. Yeah, I haven't even checked the vote. I haven't even checked the odds on that recently, but I think he was in the top sort of 10, 15 in the bookies odds for the season, and I can't see any reason why that's not carried on, to be honest. He's had a great start, and offensively looks even better than before, and defensively he's always been great, hasn't he? So yeah, definitely making a case. Let's go on to our next segment then, Rookie Watch. We're going to do one rookie each that's impressed us for however long since we last spoke. So why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so I was looking around at kind of which rookie did I want to talk about and which one's been stand out, and he's not been like phenomenal in terms of standout with his stats and bits and pieces, but I wanted to talk about Precious. Is it Achiuwa?
Precious Achiuwa, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Very, very good rookie.
Watched a couple of Heat games, and he is perfect for that Heat team. They have drafted very well there. He's like a perfect stand-in at centre. And he's long, he's athletic, he switches well from what I've seen defensively. He can get the rebounds, he can get the boards. He's what's he averaging? 7.8 points.
Does play a lot like Bam as well.
Yeah, and I think that's why they drafted him. They want sort of Bam version 2. So they got a like for like when they take him off the court, because he is so important to their offense and defense at the moment. So if they can get 2 of him basically on their team, they are absolutely sorted, aren't they? Yeah,
definitely, especially on the defensive end as well.
Almost 8 points, 4 rebounds, 50% free throw, which definitely needs to improve, and 64% from the field. With the shots
on limited minutes as well.
Yeah, there's so much promise there. So for me, it's keep an eye out for him and watch how he develops this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be a big part of their rotation. And shout out to Dan Healy from Miami Heat UK, who had me on his pod to talk about Precious after the draft, and we were waxing lyrical about how good he was for like 25, 30 minutes. So yeah, good draft pick for them.
Nice.
Future star and perfect player to have, either to trade for James Harden or to keep forever.
Yeah.
Cool. My one is no surprise if anyone's listened to our draft content. James Wiseman is my rookie watch. He's averaging 12 and 6 at the moment with a 12 PER. He's still getting limited minutes. They're kind of easing him into certain situations, which I think is good. Draymond Green's just come back, and apparently they've got a really good relationship. So now I expect him to kick on to the next level, playing alongside Draymond Green rather than playing alongside other almost rookie/sophomore players. And his shot looks real. It does look good for someone of that size. He's got a nice stroke, played well against the Nets in the blowout loss. And not that you want to have blowout losses, but the blowout losses kind of did let them have him on the court a bit more and just get used to playing in the NBA. And now they've won a few games. He's been able to play in the fourth quarter a little bit in those. And he's looked really good for me in a time where he didn't play much last year in college. We haven't had a proper preseason. We haven't had a proper training camp. And to look as good as he does with that sort of overall scenario, it's just impressed me. And I was high on him going into the draft. At the moment, he's not proven me right because this is too early, but he looks as good as I'd hoped he would look. And I'm surprised they even start him. I think it's the right decision, but I didn't think they'd do it, but they do start him. So, yeah, James Wiseman for me, he's looked good.
I did just want to, while we're talking about rookies, make a comment about Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
Did you hear him say how easy he finds it to score in the NBA, and he's surprised it's so easy?
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting character. He does some bad and some weird interviews across his life, but immaturity apparently is part of it, and he's had a hard life. But yeah, I'm not sure many NBA defenders would have been happy hearing that.
He's still on a losing team and only averaging 15.4. When you look back at like the best rookie scorers that have come into the league, where scoring has been easy for them, like Melo or LeBron or whatever, and their rookie season's averaging 28 a game or whatever. 15.4, nothing.
Well, Luka like 22 points a game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
silly comment maybe to make when you're on the losing team.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. He looks better than I thought, actually, but yeah.
He does look like a good player. He just needs to be careful with what he's saying.
He needs to wind that in a little bit if he wants to be a fan favourite / stay in the league, maybe. Cool. Well, let's go on to our last segment then. Best upcoming games. We're going to go through a couple of games each. Why don't we also pick who we think wins each game as well for fun? So I'll start and go with a game that's tonight, Sunday night. By the way, when we say Sunday night, it's 1 a.m. technically Monday morning, but we're just going to go with Monday night. It's just easier. Yeah. So Clippers, Suns. Suns have started really well. Me and Rich spoke about them before, so me and Ben kind of haven't touched on them loads today, but they've had an incredible start to the season.
5-1.
Chris Paul versus the Clippers, obviously. There's that rivalry there. So for me, this is just one of the best upcoming games. It's two top teams. I think it's 1 and 2, isn't it, in the West in terms of current standings. You're going to have George, Kawhi versus Booker and Paul. If Paul plays, I assume he will play. I know they like to make sure he's monitored minutes-wise, but I'm sure he'll play. And it's just a fun one for me. What are your thoughts on this game and quick selection on who you think might win?
What really surprised me about Phoenix so far is the limited amount of minutes and sort of the limited amount of things Chris Paul has been doing. He just seems like he's been kind of coasting so far, and everybody's been clicking, and that Phoenix team's been playing really well. So I reckon we could see a massive game from Chris Paul tonight to help carry this Phoenix team through. But I do find it difficult to rule out Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
They're playing well. Start the season playing really well.
Yeah, even with Leonard with his weird-looking mask.
That was a hell of an elbow.
Yeah, from his own play. Did you hear what he said afterwards about Serge Ibaka?
No.
He said he was being interviewed, and they said to him about how Serge been since he's done it, and he goes, "It doesn't really matter. I'm making sure Serge is on the trading block." Which I thought was another little gem from Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, they've been friends since the Raptors days. But yeah, who are you going to get to win this game if I have to make you pick one?
I'm going to go with the Suns. I think they might struggle to stop Paul in terms of they'll have to put someone like Paul George or Kawhi on him because they haven't got a good enough point guard to stop him, I don't think. And they're going to have one of those defenders on Booker. And I feel like across the other positions in the Clippers team, And maybe, Serge Ibaka's a good defender, but have they got enough good defenders to stop sort of the offense that the Phoenix Suns have been generating this season? Not entirely sure yet. So I'm going to go with what's probably the underdog in this one and go with the Suns.
Nice, yeah, they are the betting underdog. I'll go with the favourites and the Clippers. I think Kawhi just a bit too good, and I'd flip it the other way around. I'm not sure the Suns have got enough people to defend the scorers, if you include a backer as well, who started the season really well. So I'll go with the Clippers. And by the way, me and Ben were basically split even on our preseason podcast for Christmas and the opening night schedule. So yeah, we'll roll the competition on throughout the year for another big night. Cool. Who's your first upcoming game that you're looking forward to seeing?
So my first game I've picked is Wednesday, and it's Boston visiting Miami.
Big game in the Eastern Conference, that.
Exactly, yeah. After their Eastern Conference finals, it's always a good matchup. There's some real talent in both the rosters.
Some great defenders on the two teams, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you look at it as starting five, well, not even starting five. Look at top 9 rotation versus top 9 or 10 rotation. Some great defenders on there.
Yeah, Bam and Jimmy are standout ones for the Heat for me, and Smart. Brown can get stuck in. Tristan Thompson's been playing well defensively. It's
Precious Achiuwa, like we spoke about as well.
Yeah, it's got a real sort of, and the offensive talent's there as well. Duncan Robinson could go off for God knows how many threes, or Tyler Hero could come in and light stuff up. Tatum and Brown obviously are incredible. What would be nice for Boston, especially, is to see Kemba come back. I don't know what his recovery schedule's like and when they're expecting him, but I think they need him back for games before the playoffs just to get him in the rotation again.
Yeah, he's going to be key. Jeff Teague is not good. Not good defensively, not good offensively for me. Not a bad bench player, but he's really struggled on the defensive end. So I think getting Kemba back, whenever that may be, will help. I think it's too early to say games must win as well, but with the way they played against the Pistons and the Pacers, defensively, the Celtics could do with a win, and the Heat really haven't started off as well as they would have liked in terms of just a record. And a couple of really ugly shooting performances as well. So I think both teams are not desperate to win, because it's far too early to say desperate to win, but they'll both be thinking that if they can win this game, it could kind of kickstart a nice run for both of them.
Yeah.
I look at it and I think the Celtics, we're both higher on the Celtics and the Heat in our preseason rankings, and they both started slower than we think maybe, but I still think my rankings are kind of what I think of the two teams. So I will still go with the Celtics winning that. I think a nice Tatum and Brown, huge performance will do the job. Who are you going to pick in that one?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm going to match you on that one and go with the Celtics as well. I think especially the way Jimmy's been playing lately. I know he's coming off injury or time off, but I feel like the Celtics are playing slightly better basketball than the Heat at the moment.
Yeah, he was not very good against the Mavs, to be honest. So I watched that game, being a Mavs fan, and he was very underwhelming for a Jimmy performance. Luka kind of, not did what he wanted, because Jimmy was still probably the best defender on him. But at the other end, he couldn't score on Luka, and Luka's not known for being I know he's got great size, and he's putting more effort in now, but he's not a great defensive player, and to struggle to score on him is a bit of a worry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the shot either, but go on Twitter and have a look at the Luka versus Bam highlight. Luka spanned Bam out of his shoes like 3 or 4 times. So this
did see that.
It's a good layer, and there's one angle that when you see him, when he fakes him out for the 3rd time, and then he realizes, oh great, I'm free to the basket now. Luka just starts laughing as he's putting the ball in the back of the net, and it's very much a Luka having fun highlight. So.
While we're talking about him, I did almost put him in my losers actually for kicking and breaking one of the advertising screens when he got annoyed.
Yeah, that was annoying as well, because there's the biggest foul, not the biggest foul, but I could spend an hour talking about this, but he got fouled so badly and the ref didn't give it, and this happens every game. The most frustrating thing is to see him play a LeBron player. We've said before he plays most like LeBron than anyone in the league now. Not that he's as good as LeBron, but the playing style and offense is similar. And the amount of fouls LeBron gets at the rim compared to Luka is crazy, and they play the same. And I just think there's this sneaky little maybe Euro bias. A lot of people on Twitter say it's a white bias, but I don't think that's true. But I think a bit of a Euro bias though, because he's a bit more floppy and a bit more like a soccer atmosphere with how he speaks to referees. He doesn't get as many calls because he gets fouled all the time.
Yeah.
But the other issue is if you give fouls all the time, the game can slow down. But they don't care when it's James Harden. But that's just my rant there. But yeah, go watch that highlight, and also go watch the highlight of him kicking the board, because when he kicks the board, like Ben just said, and he walks off the court afterwards, you can see him again kind of smirking and regretting that he just smashed the hell out of this advertising board.
It made me laugh as well, because it was quite to look at, it was quite a feeble little kick. Like he was throwing a little...
so you see the damage.
Yeah.
He's got big legs, mate, so it's just a bit of weight behind there. Cool. Last game then on my list for best upcoming games. Speaking of the Mavs, and speaking of James Harden, funny enough, Mavs versus Rockets, Monday night, 1 a.m. So another late one, but not ridiculously late. But yeah, you need some coffee to stay up for it. I'm not sure if Harden will play with this whole ankle sprain / trade rumors going around. But either way, I think the way the Rockets are playing, Christian Wood is going to cause the Mavs a little bit of an issue. And anytime you can see Luka go against, probably one thing the Rockets have got worse on this year is defensively. They've got a better roster, but they're not quite as locked down defensively as they were last year, with John Wall and Cousins being in the rotation. So yeah, I think that it's going to be a fun game, and Porzingis has resumed full training now, I believe. Not that I expect him to play this game, but I just think the Mavs are kind of ramping up quite well, and I think it's a fun offensive game, even if Harden doesn't play.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is going to be a big game. I'm looking forward to seeing Porzingis back massively, not just because he's one of the key players in my fantasy league team. But,
he is. You drafted him ahead of me in one of ours, I think, didn't you? So let's remember
that. Bring on mid-January when they're going to start rolling him out in limited minutes.
Yeah, the rumours are it will be within the next 2 weeks, and that report came out 2 days ago. So you think by middle of Jan, maybe 20th of Jan, we will see Porzingis. So that'll be exciting for you and for any Mavs fans, because I know that the team are a lot better with him, and offensively they're just a different level again when he's on the court, aren't
they? Yeah, exactly. They're a completely different team with and without him. So bring him back, but.
Who are you picking in the Mavs Rockets lineup then? In the matchup, sorry.
It's a tight one, this one, but I'm going to go with the Rockets. I think are going to take it
without Harden, or if that's you're thinking he might play.
I think he might play. If he doesn't, it goes Mavs side for me. Harden is the decider.
Cool.
That's where I'd go.
I'll go the Mavs, obviously. I was never not going to say the Mavs. Maybe if Luka was out, I probably wouldn't say the Mavs, but that's probably the only time you're going to get me to not pick the Mavs to win a game is if Luka's not playing. I'm looking forward to seeing Luka, like I said, against this defense. I think either way, Harden or not, it's going to be 100+ versus 100+ sort of game, isn't it? I don't expect any 93s, 86 defensive battles with these two teams. They're in the same division as well, so in terms of winning your division, and if anyone's got any preseason bets on division winners, then this will be the first matchup of the two teams. So it's a big one. I'll go Mavs, you go Rockets. I think we've split the games again then. We've got a couple of the same and a couple of different 4-4 again.
Yeah.
Ooh. Typical us.
Yeah, it usually is, isn't it?
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up then. Like I said, next Sunday we'll join you probably with the same categories and maybe add in a couple more fun ones throughout the season as time goes on, as we get nearer to things like the All-Star break and the trade deadline. But I guess all that's left to say is enjoy the week of basketball. There's absolutely loads of games. And enjoy going back to work, Mr. Jones, as well.
Yeah, can't wait. Bring on tomorrow. Fantastic.
Well, enjoy the basketball, guys, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye.